Okay. We've got 1 minute to go till past, so we'll give people time to get here and try and do my scarf up, and then we'll start. Okay, so welcome to this meeting of Council. This meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and the voices and images of those participating in the meeting, including in the gallery, may be captured as part of this recording. So firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the original custodians of the land that we're meeting on, pay respects to elders past and present, and to any members of the Aboriginal community who are here with us tonight. As councillors, we have all taken an oath to carry out our duties in the best interests of the people of Indigo Shire and to do this in a fair and impartial manner. We are all committed to exercising the council's powers and functions to the best of our skills and judgment. Do I have any apologies? I believe Director of Infrastructure Ian Ellett is not with us tonight, and we have instead Brad Dinsdale in his place, so welcome Brad. Any other apologies? Declarations of conflict of interest.
Yes, I've got an indirect conflict of interest by close association under Section 78.1 of the Local Government Act in item 11.2 of the agenda, the Airbnb accommodation review, and I'll be leaving when that's on.
All right, thanks, Councillor. Open forum. So, clearly with such a big gallery, we've got quite a few issues on tonight that people are interested in, and we do have a number of questions. Just to be clear, the questions have to have been submitted in writing by 6 p.m. It's also, the local law requires that you really do ask a direct question. All of these questions have got quite a bit of information attached to them. I'm happy to give you a little bit of leeway on that, but it's not a soapbox tonight. This is actually about asking the questions and getting some information. And so we will first cab off the rank. I will ask John Baines to come up to the microphone. And also you are limited to 3 questions. So, yeah, thanks for that, John. So, John, the microphone, sorry, can someone help John turn it on? Yeah, thank you.
Red, I'm alive. Okay. Madam Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, I'm the chairman of the Burke Museum and Historic Precinct Advisory Committee. And my questions relate to agenda item 10.3, page 18 of the agenda, which is the report on the committee review. Our committee has been very active right through this process and submitted many documents. I don't want to go over those. I have 3 specific questions.
Yep, thanks, John.
Question 1. The elected council is the custodian of the unique and nationally significant Burke Museum and Historic Precinct, which sustains the community by establishing a sense of who we are and where we've come from. Why would council unnecessarily legislate away a source of independent, qualified community and technical support to you as decision makers and the manager of the Burke Museum and Historic Precinct at a significant time in its evolution? In other words, the consideration and the implementation of the Precinct Master Plan, aspects of the Tourism Strategy 2023 and Ned Kelly Alive project.
Okay, thanks for that question, John. Look, just to clarify, what you said is absolutely correct. What we are looking for is a source of independent, qualified community and technical support to advise us. And so the role of this committee is being expanded to actually incorporate the rest of the Shire as well, because the heritage of our Shire is so important. And because this committee, in fact, has been very successful and everything you say about it is correct, and we now have a manager of the Burke Museum in place and a bunch of resources that were not there when the committee was started, Council is now considering whether or not we extend the role of that committee using the expertise of the people that have been on it and more than that, to really start to look strategically at all of the collections across the Shire. So I guess I want to clarify that it isn't about removing support and advice, it's actually about expanding that role. So your next question.
Let me just say that we have presented against that case.
Yeah,
Question
we did, by
two.
the way, just to clarify, you said you'd put in submissions. We have seen those submissions,
Yeah.
John, and you
I
have
understand
presented
that.
to us. Yeah.
I'm just saying I disagree.
Yeah, that's fine.
Question 2. Why would Council accept a proposal to achieve its Council Plan 2.4.2, review museums, athenaeums and historic collection in all towns, that is not supported by draft terms of reference for a replacement committee, evidence that the proposal will achieve the aim and offers no range of options to choose from?
So again, just to be clear, the whole point of this is to meet that proposal on 2.4.2, and the terms of reference and the formation of that committee is now to be decided. So we're not going to create a new committee while a committee is in existence. We're going to now review, assuming that it gets passed tonight, and I don't know what that decision will be yet. But if that committee is no longer in existence, then the work then is to set up the terms of reference for the new committee, including who should be on it, what are the kind of representatives we're looking for to achieve that aim. That's the whole point of doing it.
There's no guarantee that for these people, these fellow councillors, to know what that will be. I move on to question 3.
Yep.
And this relates to the resolution or the recommended 4G in the resolution tonight, which in fact says requests that the Council, in relation to the Burke Museum and Historic Precinct Advisory Committee, request staff to transition the relevant objective of this committee into a new Cultural Heritage Advisory Committee and ceases operation of the Burke Museum and Historic Precinct Advisory Committee.
Yeah.
And for the audience, that means the other part of the recommendation, if you've got a copy of the agenda, is to close down also the Heritage Committee and join these two quite separate groups in some new form. My question is, on what basis can Council make a decision to focus on developing the wider Indigo Shire heritage assets whilst maintaining the standards at the Burke Museum and Historic Precinct without increasing staffing resources and financial commitments when, as required by the Burke Museum and Historic Precinct Advisory Committee, existing terms of reference which state to advise and make recommendation to Council on the relationships, working and the maximisation of opportunities and assistance between the Burke Museum and Historic Precinct with other museums, athenaeums within the Shire. All the managers of the Burke Museum since 2009, when it was formed, have competently attempted and fell short of their ideals to improve and assist other sites due to unrealistic workload expectations placed on them.
So, John, I guess I can only reiterate what I've said, that the whole purpose of this new committee, if it comes into being, is to do exactly that, that we would be looking for people with passion, commitment, knowledge, expertise, skills, to broaden out the role of that committee to take in the Shire, which to date it hasn't been able to do. It's been only focused on the Beechworth Historic Precinct. So that's the purpose of this. I take your point that you don't agree that that can happen, but that is the role of this committee. Your opinion is that that won't work, but that is actually exactly why we're trying to look at the new role for this committee.
The report...
and that includes, just to say that, we will be looking at getting people onto that committee that do have the skills and experience to assist the manager in those decision making and strategies. So that's the whole purpose for it.
But there is a statement in here, in the report, that says there are no financial implications and it can be done in the existing finances.
Yeah, so
and I've just said, if you don't increase the staffing, how do you expect one person to do all this? They've failed in the past, not because they couldn't do it, but their tasks, which have become more complicated, because I've worked with the three of them. Unless you give them more staff and more financial resources, you will exhaust them and you will lose them.
So, John, just
I'm
to be
finished.
clear, thank you. Just to be clear in response to that, that is in relation to there are no costs of the committee. We don't pay the committee members. So that's what that was in relation to. So the resourcing around changing the committee into a different format doesn't actually require a financial input from council. It's not about the resources for the Burke Museum. But thank you for your comments.
Thank you for all.
Thanks, John. All right. So Harvey Anderson, second person.
Thank you, Mayor. I refer to the committee review recommendations that the Beechworth Treescape Consultative Committee be retained in the form of a reference group. And the question is Council aware that not all the community's tree concerns have been met, that there are still outstanding issues beyond the more operational tree matters as covered in the 4-year council plan and to be addressed by the review group? And so I'm just, we're very gratified with the progress made on trees. We've got a good feeling it's going to continue. We don't want the baton to be dropped at this stage, and we're just looking for confirmation.
So again, this isn't about removing the tree group or not using the expertise within it. It's actually just saying that the format that currently exists, where in fact that advice is really about the operational management of the trees, will be more focused on the operational side of the organisation. And so that's the reason for the restructuring. And I think it's probably important just to say that part of this review is about trying to get the right structures in place for committees that have evolved over many years in different circumstances, reviewing them and saying, well, what's the best way forward? How do we maximise input from the community and also bring in new skills and advice from people that might not already have had an opportunity? So this is about targeting that group now to be advising our operational people who are the ones that are managing the trees, and that's fed back to us. So it's not going to take away the input and advice from that committee. It's just simply changing the structure of the committee.
Thank you, Mayor. That's good to know. Thank you.
And the third questioner is Peter and Margot. Welcome. So Margot, you're speaking?
Yes, I'm speaking on behalf of Peter and I, Madam Mayor, councillors, ladies and gents. Firstly, I did want to clarify the position of our group when we were talking about the level playing field regarding our accommodation industry. What we've actually asked for is we wanted the ABLIS registration of prescribed accommodation in Victoria that we're regulated by and pay fees accordingly be applied to other businesses that are described in that document. And it's got nothing to do with Airbnb and the like, as has been suggested in other forums here, as we can be on that platform too, and many of our people are on the Airbnb platform. We're only asking that all accommodation that falls under the ABLIS document description comply as we're obligated to do by law, and also the traditional B&Bs haven't been affected as suggested in the documents that I've been reading that were issued by Council. By the Airbnb, as what you're suggesting, we've actually found that our turnover in most of us, we're doing fine, but what's happening is we can't sell our businesses because the perception is that there's so much in the way of accommodation out there. They don't understand that it's not regulated and it's not actually affecting our level of business. And so that was just a clarification of what we're actually trying to do here. I guess that wasn't really question one, but it was just a clarification.
So just to clarify in relation to that,
yep.
we're bound by the legislation of the state government. That's what we enforce. So the ABLIS registration isn't what we enforce, it's a different body altogether, and it's not what, it doesn't define our role in local government as a statutory authority. So while you may be required to do things under that's not what applies to council. And so that's part of the issue, I think, is a lack of understanding that we don't implement ABLIS registration. We implement the state government regulations that are brought in for accommodation providers that we're required to implement. So that's just to clarify that it's a different. I think there's a misunderstanding there about our role within that.
Only the documentation that I've got has actually got state government letterhead, and it's got Indigo Shire on there as well, and it's the conditions that we have to comply with reflective of that document, or most of that document.
So I'll hand over to Mark just to clarify that, but they may be in line with that, but we're not actually enforcing those regulations.
Is there actually a
I'll let Mark answer that. Sorry.
Excuse me, Mark.
Sorry, Margaret. Thanks for the question. My understanding of the ABLIS, excuse me, it's a government reference website which brings together a whole range of legislation, information about legislation for businesses to be able to access. I think what the Mayor is referring to is, in terms of local governments in Victoria, we're governed by, in the accommodation space, we're governed by 3 pieces of specific legislation. One is the Food Act, so to regulate those accommodation providers in 4 categories that are providing food to their guests or residents. The second one is the Victorian Public Health and Wellbeing Act, which within that has prescribed accommodation. So self-contained accommodation is not included in the registration component. Self-contained or any accommodation that accommodates for 5 people or less. But so that's another part of the legislation that we're required to meet. And the third one is the Victorian Building Act. So they're the 3 ones. So the only knowledge I have, or my staff have, about ABLIS is that it's a website that collates a lot of information about legislation, but it's not the actual legislation that governments in Victoria are obliged to respond to.
So in turn, if I was to apply now to open some form of accommodation business, is there something that you would give to me as a council, and it would only have those 3 requirements on it that you've just described, with the health and the food, etc., that would be all that I would be required to comply with?
In terms of the operation, so that hypothetical business would need to be assessed in terms of that legislation, and then the various elements of that legislation would be applied to what was being proposed.
Certainly, Mark, when we came in, we were given a much longer list, including proof of public liability, a whole variety of things that were on there. And these are the extraneous pieces, according to even the ABLIS document. They're the things that are actually that are contingent on proper accommodation.
Margot, I'm just going to suggest, given that this is a public forum, but rather than talking about your own specific issue, you're very welcome to bring that to Mark and discuss offline. But can we get on to the questions?
Sure. Could I just say, that wasn't just my specific, that is universal.
Sure.
It's not just
but it sounds like it's something that needs to be clarified further. So
no, that's fine. I understand that. Thank you.
Okay.
And question 3, it's not so much a question. It's basically saying that if the council feels that it can only raise roughly $60,000 with the registration fees that it's looking to put into place for businesses that are looking to start up in the future, or in turn start to comply with, as they should have been doing already, our property alone contributes $925 to the CFA commercial levy. It does an extra $629 as a 12.5% extra on our commercial rates. And it seems to me that if you actually looked at the number of accommodations around, if they were actually registered and paid both the 12.5% and the regulation fees that you're talking about, you've got more than enough money for more than one, probably 2 people, to actually start bringing these people into line.
Okay, so I guess there's a few things there. One is they're not out of line, like they're actually complying with what's required. I accept that you're not happy with those requirements, and we are advocating to the state government to say There's a new playing field here, and some of these regulations that the state imposes needs to be looked at and reviewed, and we're absolutely advocating for that. But people are not out of line. They're actually quite legitimately conducting businesses that are bringing tourists to town, that are supporting other businesses, and are clearly the digital platforms are causing disruption. There's no question about that. But in terms of So just to be clear, that because the implication, what you're saying, is that people are getting away with not complying, and in fact there's been an audit done and that's not the case. That's just to clarify that. And in terms of putting on new staff, which I think you're requiring there, we looked into that happening down in Mornington Peninsula, where they did do that, and there were around 600 registered properties with Airbnb, but there's 40 here, so that's the difference in scale. And also that what they were really trying to manage there were the parties, the amenities and all those things, and that actually isn't. It's
not where we're coming from.
Yeah. So, but that was what happened in Mornington that created the need to employ.
That's only Mornington. You know that there's so many others.
Yeah. So that. Oh, sorry. Well, that was the one that we had referred to in our report. So that's really we don't have that scale of B&Bs here that would actually pay for a staff member, nor do we have the social problems that are happening in some of the other shires. So
that really wasn't where we were coming from at all.
So I guess that's the answer to your proposition.
The only thing
there.
I would just say in finishing is that I absolutely disagree with you that there are homes that are in our street that are being used as commercial entities that are actually on websites left, right and centre that do not comply with any of the conditions even that Mark mentioned before.
And look, really, if you see something that you know is not compliant, then please let us know, because we don't have the manpower to be constantly checking everything. And of course, you know, we're very reliant on people letting us know when anything's breached, whether it's dogs or... You know, so please, if you think there are things happening that are not compliant, please let us know, and then it's
I guess we actually have already done that, but until we actually get a list of what compliance actually is,
sure,
and I'll take it offline with Mark. Okay,
yep.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did you want to say something, Mark? To that?
No, it's okay.
Okay, all right. So thank you, and I think that's it for public forum. Okay, so the next item is condolences. I do have a condolence motion that I'd like to put tonight in relation to the passing of Ian Jones. So Indigo Shire Council sadly acknowledges the death of Ian Jones. Ian was an accomplished writer, journalist, producer and director, and was widely acknowledged as a leading authority on the life of Ned Kelly. He first visited Beechworth in 1959 and relocated to live here in 2004. He was a much loved and highly respected member of our community. He had a long and successful career as a pioneer of Australian television, including many iconic TV shows including Homicide, Matlock, The Sullivans and many more. And he wrote the definitive biography of Ned Kelly, A Short Life, in 1995. So we just want to acknowledge Ian's immense knowledge and contribution to the Kelly story and Beechworth, and his generosity and willingness to share his knowledge with members of the public. He also, I believe, donated the takings of his book to the Burke Museum. So he's done some great things for Beechworth. Are there any other condolence motions?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move a condolence motion in respect to Ian Moyle. Ian Moyle passed away last week, and just to recognise some of the things that Ian has done in Yakandana and other places. Ian was a member of the CFA for over 45 years. He was also over 20 years in the local Lions Club. He was one of the founding members of Apex in Lions. He was being declared the founding member of the Men's Shed after a discussion about where he could hide a trailer, and we decided to start up a Men's Shed, which was absolutely which is typical of his character. He was also a life member of the local garden club. He's also a winner of the Council's Yackandandah Community Award. I think that was about 6 years ago, Madam Mayor. He was a lovely fella, and him and his wife Olive, who passed away about 3 or 4 years ago, have contributed hugely to Yackandandah.
So would you like a letter sent under seal to his family?
If I could, yes, please.
Okay, I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Carried. All right, thank you. So item 7, confirmation of minutes from the previous meeting. Do I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Shepherd, and a seconder. Councillor Murdoch, all those in favour? Carried. Councillor Gaffney, are you in favour? Good. Okay, thank you. Item 10.1, the August 2018 Finance Report. The resolution is that Council accept the August 2018 Finance Report. Do I have someone to move that? Sorry? Oh, I beg your pardon. Thank you. I did miss that. Is there any business arising from the previous minutes? Councillor Gaffney.
Just one small thing. Item 12.1 was deferred from the last meeting to this meeting unless the CEO needed more time in regard to that matter. I was wondering when it might come back to Council.
CEO?
Thanks, Councillor Gaffney. Yeah, the reason for the deferral is still the same, in that we were seeking to get some written agreement from all the parties involved. We're yet to secure that, and we remain hopeful that'll be ready for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. So back to the August 2018 Finance Report. Do I have someone to move that the Council accept the August 2018 Finance Report? Councillor Goldsworthy, do I have a seconder? Councillor Murdoch. Do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor? No? All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Item 10.2. This is the in principle adoption of Council's annual performance statement and financial statements. The resolution is that Council, pursuant to the Local Government Act, approves in principle the 2017-18 performance statement and financial statements, and nominates, in accordance with the Act, 3 councillors, being 3 councillors' names, as signatories, with authorisation given for any 2 of the nominated 3 councillors to certify the 2017-18 performance statement and financial statements, along with the CEO and Principal Accounting Officer, in their final form after any changes recommended or agreed to by the auditor have been made. Do I have the 3 councillors' names?
Yep. I'd like to move that motion with the insertion of my own name, Councillor Trenery and Councillor Murdoch.
So, Councillor Goldsworthy, Councillor Trenery, Councillor Murdoch. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Trenery. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Goldsworthy? No? Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. So I'm going to assume the 3 of you accepted that nomination. 10.3, this is the committee review outcomes and recommendations. So firstly, the resolution is that Council thanks the Advisory and Section 86 Committee for their input and guidance during this review, and endorses the actions shown in the administrative section below and as outlined. And I'm not going to read it all out because it's several pages. So I'm going to put the resolution. Do I have someone to move the resolution? Councillor Price. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Shepherd. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Price?
I won't at the moment, thank
you. Okay. You reserve your right. Councillor Shepherd, do you wish to speak?
This is a long time coming, this report, and when I first got on council, I was involved with lots of committees, and I wanted to find out how they were all going, and I think I was impressed with what was happening, but a few of us discussed, well, all councillors discussed that maybe there's an opportunity at the beginning of each council elected group to talk about our advisory committees and see whether they're still relevant and see whether they're still meeting their terms of reference, meeting their needs, our needs as council. And it's been a long process. This has come to council before. as a recommendation. It's gone out. I know Greg Pinkerton has done a lot of work in this and has spoken to a lot of the council advisory committees and to the chair people. It's been a big review, and I know there's areas in here that people are concerned about. One of the ones I'm concerned about is the idea of having councillors as chair people. I realise that people might be concerned about that, but I've been, and I'm concerned about it because I know we've got some very passionate chair people who lead our committees well. And I'm concerned that perhaps they will see that their role is lessened if a councillor takes it over. But I've been sort of in discussion. I can see that perhaps a councillor who doesn't have a voting right and is able to just facilitate and chair, that maybe that's a good role for them, and hopefully that won't make it less of a committee. I also know that that John especially and his committee is concerned about losing their committee, but I think there's an opportunity here for us to widen and broaden this scope and bring other people from across the Shire who are also interested in the Burke Museum and the Heritage Committee, Heritage Precinct as well, and vice versa, for the people from Beechworth to be interested in the whole heritage around the whole Shire. So I commend this, really, the work that's been done in this. I think we should give it a go anyway and see how we go.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Goldsworthy.
Having worked with many of the committees and the members on it, I can attest to the value of their input. Believe it or not, we're not the font of all knowledge, and we do require a lot of guidance, whether it's from the staff or the community, to try and make the best decisions that we can. And I see that this is a very good attempt at trying to better that process. So I support it because I believe we'll get a better outcome in the long run.
Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Price, I'm going to assume you're still reserving your right. All right, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. And I would like to say that despite the concerns, and we have heard them, this is about actually broadening and strengthening the committees. Some of them will change format, but that's because we see the input of people in this is so important, and we want to make that more relevant right across the Shire. So I hope that despite your concerns, you will be reassured. We will have input from the community into the terms of reference and the membership, and of course all of you can apply to be on these committees. So thank you, and we'll go to item 10.4, Councillor Support and Expense Policy. The resolution is that Council adopts the attached Councillor Support and Expense Policy, which is outlined on the agenda. Do I have someone to move that? Councillor Shepherd. Do I have a second to Councillor Goldsworthy? Do you wish to speak to this, Councillor? No? Anyone wish to speak to this? It's very straightforward. Okay, all those in favour? Put the motion and it's carried. Thank you. Item 10.5, Council Advisory Committee Minutes. The resolution is that Council receives and notes the resolution of the attached unconfirmed Advisory Committee Minutes and endorses the Officer comments. Do I have someone to move that? Councillor Trenery, seconder. Councillor Murdoch. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Trenery? No? Okay, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Item 10.6, Assembly of Councillor Records. Again, I put the resolution that Councillor accepts the attached Assembly of Councillor Records. Do I have a mover? Councillor Gaffney, a seconder. Councillor Price. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor? No. Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. All right, item 11.1, Q Springs Water Extraction Monthly Monitoring. The resolution is that Council notes the Q Springs Water Extraction Facility Monitoring Report content and the action undertaken where required. Do I have someone to move that? I'll have Councillor Gaffney and seconded Councillor Shepherd. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor?
Yes, I do. I just noticed that we've been advised that Golb and Murray Water, the commercial licence bores are inspected and meters read once a year each May. I just wonder whether council ever sees those, and do they come in on exactly 19 meg or more or less?
Can you answer that, Director Florence?
I certainly don't see them. I'm not. I doubt that council would see them. It's not something that is a requirement for council to be. It's a matter between the licence holder and the licensee. Sorry, the licence holder and the Golb Murray Water who issue the licence.
Okay.
Thank you. I've also noticed that there's been a major reduction in the number of trucks coming down from Stanley. I'm just wondering whether they've reached their allocated amount or whether there's a drop in the demand for bottled water. I don't know how we could find that out, but the trucks have slowed to a crawl to what they used to be.
All right, so I'll take that as an observation. Okay, if you want to move this resolution, Councillor?
I have moved it.
Oh, sorry, seconded. Anyone else wish to speak to it? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Item 11.2 is the accommodation review. So the resolution is that Council recognises that the market for commercial accommodation services has experienced a significant change, and that Council's review of the local situation and impact is important, acknowledges the input of local commercial accommodation operators in raising the issues with changing accommodation market trends, provides input into the state government review of the Public Health and Wellbeing Act, which of course is relevant to accommodation, and considers Indigo Shire's response in light to future legislation, considers the classification of accommodation businesses as a specific item in the next review of the council rating strategy, which, just to clarify, would actually go some of the way to what you were raising before, Margot. Continue to administer and enforce current legislation relating to the commercial accommodation sector, and investigate the benefits of a recognition program of compliant accommodation businesses through online and VIC channels. So I'll put this resolution. Do I have someone to move? Oh, sorry, CEO.
Sorry, Madam, I got a point of order. I noticed Councillor Shepherd left the room, but my recollection of the Local Government Act, but I don't have it right at hand, is that the council also needs to declare the conflict immediately prior to the item as well as prior to the agenda.
Okay.
So just to keep her squeaky clean, I might ask if she comes back in and declares it.
Sorry. We'll just make sure we get it correct. Sorry, Councillor, I didn't even see you go. You just need to declare at the point of time of the item. Yeah. So item 11.2. And
I have an indirect conflict of interest by close association under section 78.1 of the Local Government Act in item 11.2. So this item that's come up right now. So I will leave the room.
You can leave
again.
the room. Thank you, Councillor. Thanks. That's okay. It's got to be done correctly. All right. So I've put the motion. Do I have someone to move it? Councillor Goldsworthy. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Murdoch. Do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor?
It is a changing market. It's a changing world that we're living in. It bears similarities to the retail market at the moment and the difficulties that they're going through with online trading. Whilst I don't envy what some of our local operators are dealing with, it has brought new business and different people to the town. So there are ups and downs for the local community. We want to support as many as possible. This motion tries to assist those that need it in the limited way in which we can act, because it is a very difficult issue and it's not one that's faced by the Indigo Shire alone.
Okay, Councillor Murdoch, do you wish to speak as a seconder? No. All right. Anyone else wish to speak to this motion? Councillor Gaffney.
Just a question, Madam Mayor. On point 6 it says, investigates the benefits of a recognition program of compliant accommodation businesses through online and visitor information centre channels. What does that actually mean?
Well, my understanding is that it means if businesses have been deemed to be compliant, that they can be that can be put up as a public recognition that they are compliant. So if you come in and you're looking for accommodation, you can actually see if that particular accommodation provider is on that list as being compliant. And if they're not compliant, they won't be on the list. So that's what that means. Am I correct in that? Yeah. So it gives the people that are compliant a bit of an advantage in the marketplace, which is fair. Does that answer your question? Okay. Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Okay, I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. And could you just get Councillor Shepherd back in the room? Thanks, Councillor. Welcome back, Councillor. Don't believe him. All right, so we're up to item 11.3. This is Planning Permit 180158, Bilson's Beverages Proprietary Limited, 29 Last Street, Beechworth. The resolution is that Council approve the application subject to the conditions included at Attachment 4, which are available online and are very numerous. I'm not reading them out now. And that Council issue a notice of decision to grant a permit. Do I have someone to move this motion? Councillor Goldsworthy, do I have a seconder? Councillor Trenery, do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor?
As I say, there are many businesses that are going through hard times. The retail sector is going through some decline. We need to support new businesses. We've heard from the applicant as well as those that have objected to it. They have moderated their application for the permit. I believe that the resolution that's attached to this motion is appropriate in the circumstances. It's been a long-running business since 1865. There has been manufacturing going on there of a different nature over that time. They've worked from early in the morning till late at night. Over that time they have existing rights, uses. This is a slight change in direction where they'll be selling alcohol, and I understand the community concerns around that. There is an liability of the owner of the premises to ensure that the amenity of the area is not affected adversely. Not only does that come from the council, but also in the liquor licensing laws. And so I would encourage the community that surrounds the area, if they do have concerns, then ensure your local authorities are aware of it. That's if you can't work with the owners, but I do wish the owners all the best in their endeavour, and I hope it's a success for you.
Okay, Councillor Trenery, do you wish to speak as seconder? Okay. Councillor Gaffney.
As Councillor Goldsworthy said, that brewery has been in Beechworth since 1865. There's going to be a whisky bar there, which will close on Friday and Saturday nights at 8:30 and Sunday to Thursday at 5 p.m. It will certainly be a boost for tourists. I think there's only one other whisky bar that I know of, and that's a chocolate and whisky set up in Corowa. This location is perfect. The Carriage Museum, it's got so much going for it, and it should attract a much different clientele to what Beechworth currently has.
Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Trenery.
There's not a lot to add. I commend what my fellow councillors have spoken about, and note the enthusiasm for the whisky bar. I think it is something different for the area, for Beechworth. I think, as Councillor Gaffney said, there's only one other, and it's in Corowa, so this is a great idea. And the fact that the owners have really taken into account their neighbours in reducing hours and trying to do the right thing is absolutely fantastic. And it's to the staff and everyone involved with the negotiation, it's an excellent result.
Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? Councillor Shepherd.
it's interesting when you're a councillor trying to weigh up both sides, because you can see, I could see if I was a resident there, I'd be concerned about the parking and the noise. But having gone there today to have a look around, I thought I could see the intent of the business, and I can also see Nathan and Felicity's care for their concern around their neighbours. So I'm hoping that it will be a good outcome, and that the main thing I could also see was the parking was an issue, and I could see that that would be a concern if you had trucks and things parking out the front. But with the conditions and the car parking, I'm hoping that will work. But I think it's something we'll definitely be keeping our eye on as councillors.
Okay. Councillor Trenny, you've already summed up. Sorry, you, as a seconder, Councillor Goldsworthy, do you wish to sum up? Okay. All right, so I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. And I think, just to be really clear, we did hear very clearly the concerns of the residents, as did Nathan and Felicity, and we are very hopeful that the respect that's been shown already between the different parties continues on, and that this becomes both a successful operation, and that the amenity of the neighbourhood is not adversely affected. So that's our hope in balancing it out. 12.1, transfer of land, Library Road, Beechworth. The resolution is that Council confirms its intention to transfer land at Library Road, Beechworth. I won't go into all the details, to the abutting landowner owner for the consideration of $1. Notes that the officers will place a public notice so that people have a right to make a submission, authorise the CEO to proceed with the proposed transfer of land, and should no objections be received. And I'm going to put that motion now. Do I have someone to move that? Councillor Goldsworthy, do I have a seconder? Councillor Shepherd. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor Goldsworthy? Yep.
I'd just like to acknowledge that from what we've been told, this is to right a long-standing wrong, and I hope that ultimately the landholder is satisfied with the outcome.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak to this? No? Councillor Shepherd. Do you wish to say anything, Councillor Shepherd? No,
I think Councillor Goldsworthy said it well. Thank you.
Okay. So, yes, Councillor Gaffney.
I'd just like to say that what Councillor Goldsworthy said, this is to right a wrong, which is no fault of this council and no fault of the Barch family. And it's just unfortunate that it's had to come to this stage, but I think it's a very good conclusion. Okay,
thank you. So just to, I guess, inform the gallery, it was due to the Office of Land and Titles doing reviews on titles over many years, and this one somehow got confused, and we're just fixing that up now. So hopefully that satisfies the Barch family. Okay, put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. So the next item is from Executive Management. We don't have anything, no notices of motion. Councillor reports. My diary is available there if anyone wants to ask me any questions about that. Thank you. Any other reports from councillors tonight? Councillor Shepherd.
Just a quick one. Yesterday I went to the Yakandanda Chamber of Commerce meeting where we did a tour of Yakandanda Health and the new part of the building that isn't yet opened. And I just want to congratulate Yakandanda Health, their board, and Annette Nuck and Lisa Greenwood on the standard of accommodation, and it's a beautiful building. And I said, who did all this, the designer? And they said, well, we did it. So it's impressive, and I love the fact that they said you've got to take a risk and we make mistakes, but we're putting ourselves out there, and I think they've done a great job. So it'll be great for everyone to go and have a look at it when it's open.
Thank you. Any other council reports? No? All right. So, general business. Any items for general business? Okay, so we're moving into confidential. Just to let the gallery know, you can, you're required to leave the room. You can come back to be here for the closure of the meeting if you like. Otherwise, if you wish to leave at this point, that's completely understandable. Oh, sorry. Do I have an agreement to move this, these two items into confidential? Councillor Murdoch, do I have a seconder? Councillor Shepherd, all those in favour?
What's the reason?
Sorry, I'm just trying to find the right piece of paper. Thanks, Councillor. I'm just trying to find the right piece of paper now. So, under Section 89(2) of the Local Government Act, as it deals with personnel matters, so it names people that we can't name in public at this stage. And contractual. D and A. Oh, that's number one. Yes, number two is contractual. Thank you. Councillor, I don't know who moved. Okay, so we've moved out of confidential. The members of the gallery are invited back into the chamber. The recording and live streaming has recommenced. So I just want to announce that the next statutory council meeting is on Tuesday, the 30th of October. Sorry, the next ordinary council meeting is on Tuesday, the 30th of October at 6:30 p.m, and we are holding the statutory council meeting at 6 p.m. to elect the mayor and the deputy mayor. So I now declare the meeting closed.